Dinosaur Rex. I've never killed a dinosaur in my life. In fact, I rather like the brutes. As a child, I used to fantasize about befriending one, taking a thorn from its paw, or saving it from agonizing death in the tar pits. Yes, this should do. I'll take one. Make it two. And look at me now, Hempstead Wallop, gazing down a large boar at the huntsman's shop. The whole situation was my Aunt Celia's fault. She'd summoned me and I'd responded, though the visit was not likely to be a pleasant one. I didn't dare refuse. I appreciated the allowance I received from Aunt Celia, and, in fact, its failure to materialize 2 months in a row had placed my finances in some jeopardy. I prepared a short lecture on the subject, opening with a pithy comment about the difficulty of mending convertible tops when a chap's allowance checks are suddenly disappearing like corpses in a murder mystery. It seemed to take Hovis the butler an interminable period to answer my ring, and when he did, it wasn't the well-preened Hovis at all, but the rather imposing figure of Aunt Celia. Come in, Hempstead. You look ghastly. When you're through dripping, please join me in your uncle's study. We have a crisis to resolve. We rendezvoused as planned in the study of my Uncle Grenville. I was surprised that Aunt Celia chose this spot for our discussion. Generally, the mere mention of my uncle's study made her eyes roll and her eyelids flutter, as if an unhealthy stench had just wafted through the room. Oh, what's the latest from the good uncle? The last I heard, he was chasing the spotted styracosaur around the banks of the Cubango. Abandoned the quest when I reminded him of his pledge to pursue no adventure lacking the words treasure, tomb, or riches beyond imagining. Which brings us rather neatly to the heart of the matter. I'm broke, Hempstead. Absolutely cobbles. Oh, funny, I'm a bit financially embarrassed myself. Meant to speak to you about that. My last 2 allowance checks. As usual, the essence of the situation eludes you. I am not a little short this week, Hempstead. I'm bankrupt, without assets, insolvent, penniless. Good God! You mean to say you haven't any money? Precisely. The concept I was groping to convey. Creditors bark at every door. Unless something is done soon, I shall have to sell the estate. Then my allowance is at risk? Your allowance is dead, nephew. It has breathed its last. I felt like a spotted styracosaur pierced through the heart by my Uncle Grenville. A silence deep as midnight on the banks of the Cubango settled over the room. And what about Cousin Flavia? Have your wild extravagances left her destitute as well? Unfortunately, yes. And since her divorce from Lord Sip, I'm afraid she's in much the same boat as you. It's time to look for work, Hempstead. I hear they're short of clerks at Harrod's. Oh, I can't bear it, Aunt Celia. A life spent in the electric sweeper department is no life at all. Not even the allure of promotion to crocks and fancy tins could make the days endurable. Then there's only one alternative, Hempstead. We must find your Uncle Grenville. Somewhere among your uncle's papers is a clue to his present whereabouts. We must prevail on him to send us whatever booty the African continent has yielded, and put some coin back in the family coffers. Well, we set to work, excavating the site of that modern Nineveh, my Uncle Grenville's desk, untouched since his departure half a decade ago. Several hours digging had turned up nothing to indicate the whereabouts of the missing relative. I might have given up, but for the thought of my dear cousin, Flavia. I'd always entertained a fondness for Flavia, and her ill-considered marriage to Lord Sip had nearly done me in. A lesser man would have crumbled. Instead, I rebounded into the arms of a certain Icelandic viper. I fled from that reptilian woman upon learning of Flavia's timely divorce. In a way, I welcomed this opportunity to elevate my status with her, and with Aunt Celia, who currently located me on the hierarchy of organic material, somewhat higher than excrescence, though not so lofty as snail. It seemed I had nowhere to go but up. As anyone who's ever launched himself into the wilds of Africa in search of his Uncle Grenville can tell you, such expeditions do not come cheap. Thus, the next week found me haunting familiar grounds, the famous Saurischia Downs. It was the work of a moment to locate my cousin. I'd heard a rumor that buoyed my hopes for the sixth race, a rumor Flavia was in a unique position to confirm. Oh, absolutely true, my boy. Flavia's own is a shoo-in the sixth. The trial gallops were 3.0 and 3.2 under the track record, respectively. Unfortunately, the news leaked. Betting has been heavy on Flavia's own, and the odds are miserable, 6-5. Damn, I was hoping for the long odds. I'll never get anywhere on 6-5. Oh, Aunt Celia told you then about the family fortune. Yes, and if I don't find Uncle Grenville in Africa and persuade him to send home the wealth he's squeezed from the natives, I can kiss my monthly allowance goodbye. And mine as well. Suddenly, a strange sensation coursed through my body. A chill ran through the Wallop frame. My spine stiffened, and the expression on my face prompted Flavia to remark, "Oh, what ho, Hempy? Someone drop a live eel down your back." Duubadah! 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 Really, Hempstead, I was having quite a lovely time before you started popping up and down yelling, Duubadah. He's here, Flavia. Uncle Grenville's African manservant, Dubida. He's trying to attract my attention with his psionic powers. Quick, the binocs. I think I've spotted him. That's him, all right, up in the Lord's Club. But who's that blighter with him? Come on. If anyone can lead us to Uncle Grenville, it's Duubadah. But we can't barge into the Lord's Club. They'll have us on our ears. I received a strong mental image of the betting booths. Duubadah will no doubt meet us there. After a quick round of introductions, we got down to business. To wit, how had Duubadah been pried from the service of my Uncle Grenville? In a word, cribbage, young sir. The place, Bangui. The wager, my contract. The outcome favored my current employer. Hard to feature that. Uncle Grenville was island champ at cribbage before embarking to the Dark Continent. Less I have perceived in my employer a certain duplicity of manner. I fear the contest with your uncle was not bound entirely by skill and fortune. Eh? What do you mean? He's saying that the louse slipped Uncle Grenville a marked deck, skunked the wager, and walked off with Dubidah's contract as ill-gotten gains. What? You mean he cheated? You have seized my meaning most admirably, young sir. I say, imagine the gall. Lead me to him, Duubadah. I'll show him what it means to trifle with wallops and their uncles. Alternatively, if Duubadah may be allowed the indulgence of a suggestion, one thing I've learned, when Duubadah refers to himself in that self-effacing third-person manner of his, it's time for wise men to cock an ear, which I promptly did. Suppose the young sir were to propose to my current employer a wager, let us say on the sixth race, at stakes my contract versus a sizable sum of money. My employer favors Flavia's own quite strongly. If Flavia's own were not to win the sixth, the young sir and I would be free to embark on the required expedition. Duubadah, you've failed me. In the first place, we haven't any sizable sum of money to wager against your contract. And secondly, Flavia's own is a sure bet in the sixth. Hempstead's right, Duubadah. We've little money, and Flavia's own is 6-5. I'm afraid your plan's a bust. If Duubadah might be allowed further observation? Regarding stakes, the sum is required only if the wager is lost. I have planned for that contingency. As for the race itself, experience teaches us the true rarity of the sure bet. Perhaps if the young lady were to share her intimate knowledge of the steed, well, one shies from the word sabotage. And still, I believe I see your point. Yes, indeed. It's an outside chance, But listen to this. We'll have to work quickly. Duubadah introduced me to his current employer, one Thorbjorn Hornjorn. He was an Icelander and an explorer to boot, which is the best thing to do with explorers, I've found. I maneuvered the conversation around to the sixth race and dropped a disparaging remark about Flavia's own. When I proposed a wager of 2,000 quid, the Icelander was skeptical. But the odds, Flavia's own is the sure bet. Experience teaches us, Hjorn, old boy, the true rarity of the sure bet. No, the animal strikes me as weak in the withers. The offer stands. Meet or retreat. The choice is yours. Oh, you're on then, if Siga agrees. As my fiancée, she is to be consulted on these matters. Siga? Ja, Siga, Jean's daughter. You wouldn't know her? What? No, not at all. Hot in here. If the term blood-curdling describes a chap's blood turning to cottage cheese and his jellied heart dropping to the pit of his stomach, then my blood did indeed curdle at the sound of the name Siga, John's daughter. For this was the very same Icelandic viper I'd fled when I'd got the chance, like a rodent from the jaws of an asp. Well, Hempstead Wallop, imagine seeing you again. You know this man, Siga? We've met in Reykjavik, wasn't it, Mr. Wallop? Yes, Reykjavik. But you just now told me you didn't know my fiancé, Mr. Wallop. Oh, did I? I really can't recall. Perhaps you mistook my meaning. Be that as it may, we're all here together at last, eh? I propose a toast to the sixth. To the sixth? The sixth race, you mean? Whatever for, Mr. Wallop? Mr. Wallop offers 2,000 quid at even odds against Flavia's own. I'm tempted to accept. Unfortunately, our money's already in the betting booth, earning a scant 6-5. If you'd been here earlier... Where's the pity? Well, it was probably a foolish wager anyway. Excuse me, sir. I couldn't help but overhear. If Duubadah may be allowed to suggest an alternative? Duubadah had intervened right on cue, and the wager was decided. Dubidah's contract against my imaginary 2,000 quid. Oh, look, they're at the starting post. Listen, Duubadah, about that contingency plan. Yes, if we should lose, I recommend rapid retreat, loudly exclaiming fire to incite the crowd and hinder pursuit. They're off. Well, it isn't much of a plan, is it? There he is, number 11, first through the gate. He's taking the lead already. He's taking the lead, Duubadah. Shh. Will you look at that stride? What a beast. Have you ever seen something like it, Mr. Wallop? No, never. Now, the whole plan revolved around a quirk of Flavia's own, known only to my cousin. The steed, hatched in a storm, retained a deathly fear of thunder. Our only hope was for a whacking great boomer to throw Flavia's own off stride, a hope which faded in my breast as the clouds parted and warm sunshine bathed the track in a golden glow. Good dry track today. We'll see a new record for sure. Looks like there's no catching him now, eh, Wallop? No, it seems not. I shot a sizzling look at Duubadah, a look I trusted would burn him to the quick for his lame-brained scheme, only to find my fiery stare a pathetic, tepid thing next to the incandescent fury that was his own. Lucky for me, I was not the object of that stare. No, it was fastened on the clouds, and my heart flew to them in pity. In seconds, the sky darkened once again. The clouds crashed together, writhing in agony. Lightning flashed within their bowels, and Flavia's own trembled. He was once again a hatchling, cast into a cold, wet, booming world of darkness. He broke his stride, stumbled, and recovered. A rumble like an earl's stomach at mealtime sounded from above. The crowd glanced heavenward, and still Flavia's own neared the finish line, a full 3 lengths ahead of Ticklish Rib. My heart had just decided to quit beating when suddenly it can't be. No, I won't stand for it. Look at the stupid animal. No rum and go, old boy. No record today, I'm afraid. I say, Flavia's own seems inclined to begin the race all over again. He's headed back to the gate. Oh. Grudgingly, the Icelander made good his bet. I accepted Dubidah's contract in a sportsmanlike manner and retreated quickly. Not caring for the look of viperous hatred in Siga Johnsdotter's eyes. Flavia, meanwhile, had brought home a staggering sum on the winner, Ticklish Rib, at 100 to 8. Our expedition was underway. To be continued.